Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
Buddy? Sorry, I was just so mesmerized.
By what?
By you. Jimmy, I want to paint you.
Paint me. Alright, suit yourself.
It's my masterpiece.
जो वक्त आए जाने क्या दिखाए
Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Deniz, the Buddymeister.
We have reviewed more than 400 Indian movies on the channel and we plan to continue to do so in the new year.
Once a month, we let all our awesome patrons and YouTube members decide what we should watch next. The last poll was all about Aamir movies, and for once we got a pretty clear winner.
The options were set clear winner Dil Chahta Hai, as well as Fana and Talash. The next poll is already up as well, and this time our supporters can choose between 3 Tamil New Wave movies: Ayira Til Oduvan, Atakati and Neram.
Dil Chahta Hai, which means The Heart Desires, is a 2001 Hindi language coming-of-age comedy drama that was written and directed by Farhan Akhtar. This was his debut as a filmmaker. He was only 27 at the time, and we of course know him and his name very well. He directed the 2 Don movies. He has written Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, which was directed by his sister Zoya Akhtar, who also directed Lust Stories and Gully Boy, and the father of these 2 is the legendary Javed Akhtar, who became famous as part of the duo Salim Javed, and who wrote the lyrics for all the songs in Dil Chahta Hai.
As far as I know, this is considered a landmark movie in Hindi cinema, a departure from previous big and glossy commercial Bollywood productions, a breath of fresh air, a story about the youth set in big cities, with a more natural approach and a very different and almost experimental soundtrack, at least for the time. It's a bit difficult if you watch it today for the first time, because now this breath of fresh air is obviously not as fresh anymore, and at the beginning it almost felt like it has a lack of energy when compared to other Bollywood movies. But it certainly worked its charms on me, and in the end I was actually really touched by it.
I'll break down the story really quick, and then I'm coming back to what you just said about the breath of fresh air. The story is fairly simple. Akash, Samir and Siddharth, aka Sid, are inseparable friends who just graduated from college and are a little bit at a crossroads in their lives. Nothing comes between them until they each fall in love, and their different approaches to relationships create tension.
Akash is played by Aamir Khan, Samir is played by Saif Ali Khan, and Sid is played by Akshay Khanna. We actually haven't seen him before.
Right, now I've read that at the time this movie was made, India was kind of at the beginning of a period of economic stability. Graduates from other countries came to India, almost every college student spoke English, and people had a better income. So it was actually possible for young people to be independent and really think about what they want to do with their lives. It was a new generation. And Akash, Samir and Sid, but also the female characters in this movie, are from that generation, the Indian youth of that time.
Everybody's able to take fate into their own hands.
Yes, that also shows in the way this movie was shot, in the way the music was choreographed and used, and how aspects like traditional clothes or certain customs aren't really an important part of the lives of these people and of the story. This naturally didn't appeal to everybody, as many people thought that Dil Chahta Hai was too English, too Western influenced, but I think that was the minority.
But it still remained kind of a peculiar experience throughout. It sometimes felt a bit like it's sitting between the chairs. It being a departure from the more familiar Bollywood style, being more realistic and more natural in some regards, but then in others still being very soppy and melodramatic. Also with a lot of lucky encounters and very predictable story progressions. But you know what? By being kind of at home in both worlds, it does have its own appeal, and while it's super long with a runtime of 3 hours, I was really beginning to like these characters and relate to them, which I wasn't at first. At first, I was a bit hesitant. All 3 are coming from very rich upper-class families, and especially Akash seemed to be a little bit too much of a spoiled, superficial douchebag. But that's of course by design and part of his character arc.
I also needed some time to get into the movie. When you've watched a lot of movies, you catch yourself thinking something like, please don't let this be some story that I've seen 1,000 times. And Dil Chahta Hai doesn't really present a new concept with this three inseparable friends parting ways at some point storyline. And it wasn't something new in 2001. But the movie works because it gives us likable characters and identifiable situations. I didn't love it because it's too long and a bit too corny and all the schmaltziness, not to mention the overall structure. But there are many great scenes and moments in this movie that just work.
Talking about the structure, it feels very loose. A slice of life, coming of age vibe with only a very slight narrative momentum. There's of course this flashback framework, something very typical, where there has been an emergency in the present with a character getting hospitalized and the three friends not being on good terms anymore. But as the 3 hours unfold, there's not that much weight to this framework.
The second half especially, it's quite different.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit like 3 movies that unfold separately from each other. It's not too bad or negative because it is held together thematically through the themes of love, youth, friendship and how to live your life, but it does feel kind of episodic, like a big serialized soap opera.
You said it, the movie's held together by the themes and the characters that live them out. This high emphasis on friendship and nostalgia and not knowing what to do, especially when it comes to love and relationships, is the glue in this movie, and it's something that everybody can identify with. It's not able to glue together each and every part though.
Yeah, the different storylines aren't really treated equally, which is a little bit of a shame. Samir's and Pooja's story becomes rather superficial. I mean, Saif Ali Khan has probably the most fun moments in the film and the wonderful energy. For example, when they are in the movie theater together with this wonderful and playful song and dance number Wo Ladki Hai Kahan. And then the moment where everyone around him starts to dance. I really love that. But it becomes clear that his story is mostly used for some more lighthearted stuff. And this movie is really a lot of fun at times.
Definitely. The story of Akash and Shalini really takes center stage towards the end, and the movie is laying the groundwork for it early on with their encounter at the club, which is nice. It's probably the most familiar or cliched story of the 3, with the free-spirited rebel who doesn't believe in love and the beautiful young woman who is engaged to a control freak. Also, the stuff with the tragic family past, the responsibilities and commitment. It all feels very familiar, but it's alright.
To me, the story of Sid and Tara feels like the most sincere, mature and tragic, and freshest. And honestly, I found Akshay Khanna to be just so adoring. Like, you really want to hug that guy. Somehow, there's so much warmth and empathy in his face and what he's doing with his eyebrows. And it was kind of a big surprise for myself how much the character of Sid grew on me. His storyline is easily the one that was the most unexpected, as his character falls in love with an older woman, something that I can't remember having seen in any other big Indian mainstream movie.
I also liked him very much. The 3 of them have great chemistry and give wonderful performances, just like Preeti Zinta as Shalini and Dimple Kapadia as Tara. Sonali Kulkarni gets kind of the short end of the deal because, like you said, her storyline with Samir doesn't feel as profound as the others, and she also simply hasn't that much screen time.
But you also have to give credit to Farhan Akhtar's careful direction. Sure, it tends to be a bit soppy, but I believe the emotions that are on display. Everyone is really committed to their role and makes you feel what they are going through.
So you could feel what Akash went through when he watched the opera and believe that it could change you forever too.
Well, that is a good example for the movie style of being in between a more realistic and a more fabricated, artificial style. I really don't believe anyone who's not into opera will suddenly be totally into it and rethink his whole life.
That's movie magic, man. But yeah, it's a strange sequence. But like I said, I couldn't believe that some scenes really got to me. I was surprised. When Akash and Shalini get separated at a train station and they stand on either side of the door, or when Akash's father tells him to come back to India and we see him on the plane and the music starts and the sun shines through the window, wonderful. Or the ending at the wedding party. You know what I was saying to myself at the end of that scene after the speech of the father?
What?
Damn you people for making me cry with that stuff. I like the ending.
Me too. It has a very Shakespearean touch with all the revelations about Shalini and her parents and the engagement to Rohit. Kind of a love or death vibe.
Decent movie. I am probably never going to love it, but I like parts of it very much. The actors, the songs, some strikingly romantic and profound scenes.
A pretty good soundtrack by Shankar Ehsaan Loy with a lot of variety too. Overall, the movie has a very modern and progressive feeling.
Yeah, so what would we say in German about Dil Chahta Hai?
Was für eine Wirkung Dil Chahta Hai im Jahr 2001 erzielt haben muss, können wir nur erahnen. Aber auch im Jahr 2023 kann er seinen romantischen Charme noch spielen lassen und durch seine Charaktere, die Schauspieler und die Musik berühren. I give Dil Chahta Hai 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.2, but I don't do that.
For me, it's also 7 out of 10. It's more like 6.8, but I don't do that either. Did you know that Dil Chahta Hai was one of the first Hindi movies that was shot with sync sound?
Yeah, I read that, but we barely hear any ambient noise, which gives it a little bit of a fake and cheap appeal sadly. But what are your thoughts about Dil Chahta Hai? Leave a comment. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and on Patreon, simply at the Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at the Buddymeister.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like.
And make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.